like I always wanted to take have the two deer. I want to have them like sneak in when they were mating, and I always thought, and finally somebody did it. That's awesome.
Thank you for doing what I've been.
But good pranks are good pranks.
Yeah.
And they don't hurt.
John? Do you want to wait for him, or we're about 6:31? Thank you.
Greg said he was coming.
This is about it.
These aren't the ones from the old place? Eda?
Seven.
Ones at the other place. It's like you got them too close.
Yeah, that's going to be.
All right, seeing as how it's 6:32, we'll get the meeting started.
I just connected that.
I'll take roll call, please.
Roll call.
Yeah.
Roll call, please.
Van Kampen,
Here.
Schneely, Mar. Bano,
Here.
Meyer,
Here.
Smithback.
Here.
Molzon, Polda, and Mojeski are out tonight.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, the approval of minutes. Item for both the May and June meeting. Looks like we'll have them next time. Oh, no, I'm sorry, here they are.
They're there.
Sorry.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve both them. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. At this time, I will hand over the gavel to Mr. Schnelly.
Sorry. Excuse me, nobody will believe it anyway. We're on four. We're on four. Yeah, on that one, yeah, thank you. At this point in the meeting, we have it open to anybody who wants to discuss anything that's on the agenda or off the agenda. And we will talk about it later also. So does anybody want to talk to us prior to that time, or do you want to wait for the agenda items?
No, like I said, you got to speak right into it.
Okay.
Need the other microphone?
We're working on it.
Okay, we'll go back to what I was going to say. Item number 4 on the agenda is a spot where we, if I find my agenda, it's open to anybody that wants to address the plan commission. Not necessarily will we have any response to it, but you could discuss anything that's on the agenda or off the agenda. Or you can wait till if something's on the agenda, you can wait for the time that's there and you can then speak. Is this still working?
That's this one.
Hello? You don't want me
Try
to
that.
talk? No, please. All right,
All right, get some chair.
third time. Okay, again, the item that we're going to talk about now is, at this point in the meeting, we open it up to anybody who has anything they want us to discuss, whether it's on or off the agenda. Limit it to 3 minutes. Otherwise, you can wait. If you have something on the agenda, please wait till the agenda items comes up. Is there anybody that wants to discuss anything that's not on the agenda? Anything that's on the agenda that you want to talk about prior to that time? Yes, sir. Please come up, speak, get us your name, your address, and go ahead and tell us what you want to talk about.
Jason Coster, 127 Lukey Lane. So I wanted to discuss the potential post office, so item 7F at 102 Alpine Parkway. So just looking at this location compared to where it currently is, it's much more out of the way for a lot of the general public compared to where it's currently located by the old library and old Village Hall. As we can see in the traffic volumes that actually travel through Oregon, the eastern interchange with 138 has 12,000 vehicles daily. The northern interchange has about 14,000 vehicles daily using that, whereas closer to this area, leaving the west side of town, it only varies from 1,000 to 3,000 vehicles daily. So you have much less traffic on this side of town, so you're not capturing the public that would be using the post office most recently, because they're typically going to it either to or from work or their daily activities. So you're really throwing it out of the way for the people. And then this also relates to possibly lower income folks who may not have the best access to vehicles or cars, where you have the downtown where everything's gathered together with the post office, so they're able to walk and get to it more easily compared to moving it out here, which is much further away for them and much more of a challenge for them to get to. And then just in general, not knowing how the costs are going to come out versus building new, rebuilding, what the need is to move it. Obviously, there's an old library lot and the talk of the senior center potentially getting changed. So don't know what's happening with those lots or what's happening to just those buildings in general with things moving for the library and everything. But just wanting to know how that's all going to interplay, and just want to make sure that the people who use the post office really have access at a convenient location where they're actually going to be spending their time and their trips.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we'll move on to the agenda. What we're going to do is we're going to move items 7,
G and
D,
H. G and H.
G, and H up, please. And then this could be a short item, so we'll get that taken care of first, and then we'll move on from there. So come on up, gentlemen.
This is the one you want, right?
Yeah, thank you for that consideration, Chair.
You bet.
You want me to?
Yeah, you
Yes,
guys can kick
yes,
it
go
off.
I'm sorry.
Okay, all right, well, thank you. Well, it's been a while. I believe that we were here in 2021 for our GDP approval. After that, we had applied for, workforce housing tax credits. We weren't successful. We submitted the same application and again the following year, and this time we were successful. So WIDA allocated us, the tax credits we need to really, move this project forward. So we're back today, in addition to the GDP now asking for our SIP approval. For the most part, you'll see a very, very similar layout as to what was seen 2 years ago. So that'd be a really good memory if you remember exactly what we had discussed 2 years ago. But, we're looking at a couple of really small tweaks. The original proposal had 60 units, this has 70. The original proposal had 3 buildings, we've maintained that. We've maintained, one anchor building along Oregon Center Drive, along with 2 6-unit townhomes to kind of give it more of that neighborhood feel. Size, height-wise is maintained, is the same as what we were at a couple of years ago. Design similar, and really the only other tweak that we made was we moved the entrance of the underground parking garage kind of around the corner and make it more of a straight shot into the underground parking versus kind of more of a curving ramp from the parking lot. We think that this project's going to be very well received. We have some amenities on site, but we're really excited about the proximity of the library, the food pantry, the playground, the restaurant across the street, daycare. It just fits well. So we're here to answer any questions that you might have. Again, the project is 70 units. All 70 units will be affordable workforce housing units that are set aside for folks that have incomes between 30 to 80% of county median income. And in addition to the 70 units of housing, we do have approximately 3,200 square feet of retail, for a user to be identified at a later date. We're hoping that would be, some sort of, coffee shop or, food option, that would be a good fit for the neighborhood. So with that, we'll open up for any questions.
Just wanted to add, There are a couple of outstanding comments from our engineer. I think they're all fairly minor, but we just got that review letter back not too long ago. So not concerned about any of those comments, but again, our standard, would just want to make sure that we get final sign off from our village engineer before the SIP is approved.
Have you fellows seen that and have no problem with it?
Yeah, there's no major issues with the consultant's comments. We just didn't have time to turn it around, and update the plans. Most of the issues we're adding, arrow directional markings and a couple of questions that we have into them regarding sewer main size and I think or water, pipe sizes with it being on the property itself. But nothing there would be of any issue. And then the other thing that we're looking for is currently 2 lots, so we're going to combine that into one lot with the
Certified
CSM.
survey. Yeah,
Yep.
so that'll be the next item on the
Yep,
agenda.
yeah.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
The only questions I've got 3.
Okay.
I think that generally the concept of your plan is, sorry, share the microphone night. I got 3. I think the conceptual layout of your plan is wonderful. I think it works out great. I think that you've got a good product for what we need here in the village. Mine has to do more with the fundamentals of the grades. It seems like going into the underground parking, you've got about 4.5, 5 feet of fall and about 40 feet. Is there have you looked at taking part of that entry from the curb cut down a little bit?
We can have our engineer take a look at the grade that we have going from the drive into the parking garage. Usually they shoot for about 12 to 15% grade,
Oh, I hope not.
but we can look and make sure that's a little bit flatter.
Yes, please.
Yep.
Yeah, 12 to 15 is really steep. It doesn't sound like much, but it's really steep.
Yeah, maybe it's
Even with the flat portion at the bottom.
yeah.
So there's the braking point at the top and the braking point at the bottom where your vehicle needs to sort of ease out of that. Veer Becker will do a fine job just taking a look at that. The other thing is, the townhomes that are on the northeast corner, the retaining wall, it looks like it's going to be about 8 feet tall in some locations. Just take a look at if that needs to be tiered, because of if you're using a boulder wall, sometimes they have a tendency to slide a little bit. Once you get to a certain point, it's better to have it in tiers.
Okay.
So just take a look at that. And then the last thing is the elevation-wise, the exposed foundation that you've got. You've got some landscaping that's going to cover up part of the foundation, but in some locations, you've got areas that aren't going to be covering all the foundation just because of the height difference. So I ask that you look at maybe sandblasting part of the foundation to make it look a little bit more cleaner. And
Typically, we have some sort of masonry on the exposed foundation.
I'm thinking on the south side, you've got a lot of walk-ups.
Yeah.
And you've got some exposed foundation that it looked like I was maybe exposed foundation. I just ask that you consider the aesthetics of that as you move forward with the project.
Yeah, mostly, we definitely will. We have had other projects that have this elevation, and we usually cover that exposed area with some sort of decorative masonry. But yeah, okay. We'll make sure to do that.
Real quick, John, could you repeat your second one?
Sorry, say again?
The rock wall.
The rock.
Yeah, if we have to tear off the rock wall.
Thank you.
Everybody comfortable with what's being presented? I mean, it's cleaning it up. The only thing would be is if, in fact, we enter into a motion, we have to make a contingent upon the final review by the village engineer. Is that correct, Elise? Okay. Prepared to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve contingent upon the recommendations and final approval by the village engineer.
We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll get through this tonight. No problem. This is kind of fun. Okay, now we'll go on. Next item is I get it.
Yep, it's the same staff report here. It's the last page, and it's the,
I lost part of my agenda. That's the SIP. So review and possible approval of SIP plan for at 831, 871 Oregon Center Drive. Applicant is North Point Development. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
Did you get both of those?
Smith back and,
Who was our second?
Mar.
thank you.
Mark, okay. Thanks, guys.
Okay, now we'll go back to item 7A. We'll start at 7A. This is a public hearing. I got that in front of me somewhere. Public hearing to discuss and consider recommendation of village board for a GDP plan, general development plan, at 5227 County Highway CC. Applicant is Regency Property Management. At this time, we'll open the public hearing. Staff reports.
All right, so we've seen this a couple times now. I'm just going to read through a couple points on my staff report and just kind of give an update on a few items. So there has been a slight change to the number of units. Overall layout is the same to what we saw with the concept plan with the parking lot behind the building and the green space fronting on CC. 142 units is currently where the plans sit. Just to clarify, right now in front of you is just, again, the GDP, which is the zoning step. So there are some of these concept site plans presented, but given that this is still in the town of Oregon, if you all choose to recommend approval to the village board, this will hang in the wings until such time as we're ready to approve the annexation ordinance and agreement with the developer / landowner. So that may be later in the summer or later this year, depending on how things go. Couple of items that were discussed last meeting, just to kind of point out changes since then. There's been a relocation of the access to the underground parking off the shared driveway access further north. So that traffic with the underground parking kind of stays separate from the surface parking flow. There have been some changes to the architectural kind of treatment of the building, but the step backs that were shown in the last meeting have remained more or less the same. I was able to have a conversation with Scott Strasberg, who's our kind of plan reviewer from the fire department, and I think I mentioned this last time, they can serve a 4-story building if needed with ladder truck through our mutual aid, our partners nearby. They also felt that, well, again, we're not the site plan step and we don't have an approved fire access plan, but they did not feel like 2 entrances would be required just for a fire safety standpoint. But again, they want to make sure that the fire access plan allows a ladder truck, whether it's, ours in the future or Fitchburg or whoever may need to come in and access the site, that they would be able to turn around in the site. So that's something that would be worked on at a further step. They did make some notes about, if the fire lane, the driveway on the eastern side would need to be signed for no on-street parking in case they need to access the building from the eastern side. I think that was the majority of the fire comments, just relocating some hydrants and water supply connections in the building. Since this was presented in June, some of the neighboring properties that are in the town of Oregon have now been listed on the market. So the Finks property to the south is another 3.5 acres, and that is now listed on the market, as well as the Thatcher property to kind of the northeast there. So now there's just 3 remaining properties, again, in this missing tooth of the village boundary. And as we're working on our capital improvement plan, our CIP for big projects for the next 10 years. We actually feel like this is relatively close in terms of getting these 3 properties annexed, may or may not be developed to, a density that we're seeing proposed here. But we've sketched out in our CIP to actually move up the design of the Jefferson Street reconstruction to 2025 and construct it in 2026. So we hope we can stick with that timeline more or less. That would be extending the village limits of Jefferson Street all the way to the western edge of the Highlands of Netherwood neighborhood. That would also include a 10-foot multi-use kind of bike ped path off-street on both the north and south sides. So that's been kind of included in the construction cost, and something that we're excited about and hopeful that that continues to move forward, because that'll do a lot in terms of improving intersections over here, improving bike and pedestrian safety, and just connecting this area to neighborhoods and all the amenities that are kind of finding themselves on this side of the village. Pedestrian access to the site was also mentioned last time and discussed, and Jeff and I did go take a walk out on the site a couple of weeks ago and kind of look at the grades. And again, with this plan for Jefferson Street, we feel like even if the multi-use path basically could be constructed even before the road reconstruction is sort of a phase one of that project. So depending on when construction would happen and folks would be living on these parcels, we would require the developer to put in that multi-use path to make sure they would at least be able to connect to Bergamot Boulevard in the meantime. And then once the full reconstruction of the road happens, then we'll have the connection on the whole south side of the road. The other kind of outstanding issue, which hasn't really been resolved, it really hasn't been resolved since the last time we met, and not sure if we have more or less clarity than we did before, but the shared driveway access between the Finks and the Ups. There's a dispute between the two property owners in terms of what the current access easement allows in terms of, right now it's 2 single-family homes, and that was sort of how the easement was, intended at the time. Doesn't really provide a lot of information about if these properties are developed and densified, does this easement, continue, and what rights are there for improvements, maintenance to the road, things like that. So we have opinion letters. I did not include them in the packet, but we do plan to discuss with the village board, as well as we've been discussing a lot with our village attorney. So not quite sure where that's going to go in terms of that resolution. We obviously want to make sure that we're approving a plan when we get to the site plan step at a later meeting that is accessible to a public road. And, I'm not a legal expert here, so what I'm hearing, though, is that we don't necessarily have the clarity that is fully in place. So that's still out there as a lingering issue, but some of these other things we've made progress on kind of answering. So that is where the plan lies. Again, we can have a developer come up and maybe just walk through a couple of those changes before we go through the public hearing.
Okay, thank you. Next will be petitioners' comments. Hi.
See you guys again. Hasn't been too long, but we're back.
Okay, I'm sorry again, we're going to have to, for the audience, names.
Sure. Oh, sorry, yeah.
addresses.
Yeah, my name's Jake Dome. I'm with Regency Property Management.
I'm Matt Tills. I'm with the Canothy and Bruce Architects.
And, yeah, like Elise kind of had alluded to, we have made a few changes to it, not a whole lot, just taking in the feedback that we received from you last time and implemented that. So most importantly, I think a lot of the concerns kind of stem from building height. So we did actually include a rendering that shows the building height differences to the closest neighboring properties. You can see at the top portion of that are the condos directly to the east of the property and how they compare to the building that we're proposing. I think the big thing in this picture kind of shows the separation of the two buildings. You can see how far they.
I'm sorry.
Sure.
Folks, I'm sorry, but it's a little bit, if you're discussing, please keep it down. It's a little distracting for us. I can hear you all talking back there. Somebody's got a very nice, deep voice, and it's carrying up here, so. I'm sorry, sir, you didn't hear what I said? Okay. I asked if we could please refrain from too much discussion in the back of the room, because it's a little distracting to those up here that we're trying to listen to these folks. That's all. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. Okay. I'm sorry, proceed, Jake.
That's all right. No, thanks. So it just kind of shows the buildings there to kind of give everyone an idea of what those two buildings look like, or two properties look like compared to each other there. So that being said, the height of the building is still somewhat of a concern, so what we had tried to do is soften the height aesthetically. We did the setbacks in the last meeting, from the two tops of the kind of U shape of the buildings that you can see. So it looks like a third-story building that does rise up to a four-story, but from the street, it softens the look of it. We also incorporate a lot of the color schemes to also soften the look of the building, which also aren't 100% set in stone. We can still change the colors. We may modify those a little bit, but I like the 3 to 4 different color aspects that can kind of give you a different view of the building. We also added some setbacks in the middle of the building, which you can kind of see there, right above where her cursor is, and also on the back corners of the building too. So if you're looking at the property from the east or the west, you can really see, it looks like a smaller building then, so you can see there. It's not quite as obtrusive as one may think. So those are the changes that we made architecturally. Another thing we did was include, like Elise had said, the driveway, or the garage access from the driveway. So now we have 2 access points there, which we really feel will kind of minimize traffic traveling all the way to the south end of the property. And that traffic mitigation will kind of help with traffic lights and, headlights going into people's yards and things of that nature. Elise kind of touched on fire access and also the pedestrian access as well. Those were kind of the main adjustments that we had made. Other than that, we think this is going to be a great project. It's in a great location, kind of at the forefront of the neighborhood, and would be a great addition to the village. We also have some other multifamily in the area too, so I think that all kind of fits right in the neighborhood there, especially with the future development that we have going on in Oregon, and a lot of things seem to kind of be moving to the west end over here, so we'd love to be a part of that, and would take any feedback that you guys have for us.
Okay, anybody have any questions at this point? I have a couple.
Sure.
Did you happen to have any additional committee meetings or committee presentations since last meeting?
No, we did not.
Which is something we did suggest, I believe, correct?
Yep.
Okay, which I think would be helpful.
Okay.
Other thing is, again, as Lise alluded to, you have a shared driveway. And whoever the person is, they might be here, that owns the property to the south, I would think it'd be beneficial that the two of you got together and got this straightened out prior to us approving the entire project. And however it's done, I think the person to the south certainly would be interested in getting it straightened out if they want to ever annex and develop.
Sure.
So that'd be wise on their part, and obviously wise on your part, so it's taken care of. So those are 2 items that I have that I'm concerned about. So we'll go on from there. Anybody else have anything that you want to ask the applicant? None right now. Okay, thank you, gentlemen. We're going to move on then to the public comments. So anybody that wants to come up and speak?
Greg, I have some registered people here.
Certainly, thank you. Okay.
Tim Higgins.
Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. My name is Tim Higgins. I live on Prairie Grass Road. I object to this project not as much because of the height of the building, but because of the population density it's creating. By my admittedly back-of-the-envelope calculations, the population density on this project would be something in the neighborhood of 121 people per acre. I did some also back-of-the-envelope calculations on the surrounding area, about 200 acres surrounding it, and determined the population density to be about 6 to 8 per acre. So a 20-fold increase in population density, to me, seems completely inappropriate in terms of maintaining the character of the neighborhood. I think, a project half this size would be ambitious, but one on this side, I think, is much too large for the space that's being proposed in terms of the population density for the village. As we know, population density does tend to drive cost of services, police, fire, utilities, et cetera. I would also suggest that the cost of those services tends to come about long before the tax revenue from that property comes about. So if we're concerned about village finances in the short term, I think this is a project that might actually stress village finances more than something else would.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
input. Appreciate it.
Carol Carr.
Thank
there.
you for the opportunity. I'm at 915 Drumlin Drive, and I would like to share that I was also previously for 7 months in one of the duplexes that bordered this development. I believe it to be slightly built on a swamp. We had a rain when I was out of town, and my total lower level had to be replaced because of all the sump pumps in that general area could not take care of all of the excess water coming down from upper streets, etc. Plus, 6.5 inches of rain was awful. There's been another occurrence at which there was a large amount of rain that overwhelmed the pond that is to the other side of this property, to that side, the west. And it severely affected the property that's immediately behind the farm, the single-family dwelling. And when the duplexes that are there now were put in, the engineers took note of all of that and what would happen if this type rain happened again. I think, as Deanna has said, it's the wrong building for maybe the right spot, but this spot is not where something like this should be built. Maybe elsewhere, it's a beautiful building, but because of the two reasons given just prior to me, I think it's wrong to be there. I also know that this was a dark community, basically, prior to all of these recent buildings, and people tend to not leave every single light on their outside open at night. This says to me that that parking lot is going to be lit from dawn to dusk by big, giant light fixtures that are going to be in our faces again. I think it's the wrong thing for that spot, other than the fact that I think it's still a swamp.
Thank you. Thank you for your input.
Lori Newman.
Hi, I'm Lori Newman Benning. I live at 268 Eagle Drive, and I've spoken during the last few meetings that you've had, so I appreciate letting us give you our input. I've spoken on a number of facets, but tonight I'm going to speak again about the oversight of the building in general. I'm wondering if the village has enough people to be able to watch over what is being done during the building process. The gentlemen seem to know what they're talking about, but they've also said that in order to recoup their investment, they needed to be 4 stories. And so that makes me wonder, what else might they be willing to cut corners with? Maybe we won't do this, maybe we won't do that. And if there's not enough people watching over what's being done, what might happen as a result of that? We've had many issues on Eagle Drive that weren't given enough oversight. We've had a number, within our own condo, we've had a number of heating and cooling issues that it was totally put in the wrong place and it wasn't done well enough and that wasn't caught. So what gives me worry about that happening. And I wanted to say, and kind of echoing what Carol was saying, I feel for the Epps. They've been trying to sell this property for a long time. Something needs to be done with it because it is a total mess, but maybe if it was cleaned up first, maybe something, you know, another developer would be able to see what the possibilities are. Just because and I feel for them, and I don't want to rain on their parade, but like Carol said too, the building is very nice, it's lovely, but we would still like to see the parking lot in the front, just because of those lights are going to impact where we live. And it's just, it doesn't seem like it's a good fit for where we live. Also, I don't want to go on and on, but also, I'm worrying about the village putting the cart before the horse. They seem to be wanting to draw people into Oregon and draw people in, and is the infrastructure ready for that? Are there enough amenities, or, you know, the builders keep talking about how much they're going to bring into the village. Well, they're bringing in people, but they're not really bringing in jobs. And I would think that we would want them to be bringing in jobs as opposed to people who are going to be needing amenities, restaurants, gas, convenience stores, whatnot. And my final worry is that enough people haven't been notified. You know, I don't remember what the 300 feet or whatever it was that the village needed to technically notify, but the traffic is going to impact the whole neighborhood, whether we're going to make left turns or right turns, or I worry that, you know, with the post office, with the library, with the buildings across the street that seem to be in favor of the board tonight, that there's going to be way too much traffic for this area that we're not going to have a solution for until everybody's trying to get out in the morning or home at night. And there's going to be no solution to that because, wait a minute, we didn't think about that. So I just want to make sure that there's enough oversight in general going on before we do all of the building and think, oh my goodness, what did we do? So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
And then I have one more that would like to speak, and then I have two I can read after. Shirley
that'd be fine.
Bauer.
I'm Shelley Bauer.
Sorry.
That's okay. And I live at 270 Eagle Drive, and I have spoke before, and I have sent letters, but here tonight I am been asked to read a letter from Mr. Fink, who lives at 5221 County Road C. I live at 270 Eagle Drive, for the record. And this is what he emailed out to be read tonight. Mr. Fink has been to many of these meetings and voiced his concerns about the development. Those are all noted in the previous meeting minutes and don't need to be reiterated here. He does have new concerns regarding the continued use of his personal property as part of this new development. Matt owns the 66-foot wide section to the east of the development. The proposal continues to show additional driveways, plantings, curb and gutter, and now even storm, sewer, sanitary sewer, and village water being placed on his property. This is currently an access easement to access the single-family home that currently sits in the site. The agreement is for ingress and egress only over the existing 15-foot wide driveway and does not include the right to place utilities on the property or overburden Mr. Fink with maintenance responsibilities and liability for 144 plus cars and people using his land. The access agreement was written in 1993 for 2 single-family homes, not a large family, multifamily development. Mr. Fink's attorney submitted a memo to the village outlining the legal concerns with overburdening of this existing agreement. The village didn't provide these new plans you see today prior to writing that memo, and the new plans continue to add extensive burden to Mr. Fink, like utilities. Because the village didn't supply Mr. Fink with the new development plans prior to writing the memo, his attorney wasn't able to add the extensive case law against adding utilities to his access easement. The developer has done nothing to minimize the impact on Mr. Fink's property, much to the contrary. They continue to use this property as if it was their own, but it is not. It is Matt's personal property. He is currently responsible for all the maintenance of this parcel and does not have the means to maintain this large driveway, 2 entrances to the development, and now sewer lines and curb and gutter, on top of the additional liability it now adds to him. He asks the Planning Commission to vote no on this development, as it adds a considerable burden to his property that was not contemplated as part of the original access agreement. And Mr. Fink says thank you. And I thank you for listening to what he asked to be read.
Thank you.
All right, I have a couple more comments here regarding this. Deanna from 173 Prairie Grass is discussing that they're not in favor of the project, is concerned about the asphalt, too much congestion, the lights, and too many people for the residential area, and asks, please vote no for the annexation, and mentions that it's too tall. And from Craig Jacobson, he's in favor of the project. He says we have a housing shortage, and this proposed development will help address this. The property's tax revenue for the apartment building versus smaller units would be good for the village.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else want to come up and speak to either in favor or against or whatever? Any other public comment whatsoever? Okay. Plan Commission comments, please. Anybody?
Craig, could we follow up on just a couple items that were concerns raised by neighbors? And I'll have Jeff speak on one of these about kind of construction oversight and review of plans. But regarding the infrastructure, obviously, we mentioned the road reconstruction project, and that would be not only beneficial for, this section of Highway CC, but everybody using this corridor, and takes into account, it would be updated traffic studies to see what improvements would be needed to the intersections, and then carry those out. As far as lighting, I think I mentioned this last time, but the village does have a dark sky ordinance, so any new lighting that's added needs to be downcast. So there's not lights that shine up into the sky, but they are all just lighting the area that needs to be lit for visibility, for safety. And we have a 1/2-foot candle, which is a very low level that can trespass or kind of cross any property line. So again, we're not at that step where we have a lighting photometric plan that we're reviewing, but that'll definitely be something that, should this move forward, we will be checking. Jeff, do you want to talk a little bit about just a plan like this, how we review stormwater plans, for example, building plans, and then how we kind of oversee these projects?
Sure, yeah, so obviously, stormwater be reviewed. We always have Dane County do our stormwater review, but we also follow it. If it is a sensitive area, we'll actually do a secondary review internally. So stormwater is usually, I don't see this being a very challenging stormwater project to be able to meet, especially with where they have their location of the stormwater pod. As far as the building and the construction, that is all held under our building inspection service, which is Safe Build. If they have to pull in additional people, they can do that. The plans will have to go through state approval for electrical, mechanical, plumbing, and all of that. And that, we've had, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 large buildings like this, large, multifamily buildings. I'm thinking 3 out at Prairie Brook, out at the Quick Trip out of Wolf Street there. We have the one Jefferson Crossing. We have Adam Coyle that's going in north of North Main. And also the ones that are behind the hotel. And we've had really no problem. All those have been built during the tenure of Safe Built being here, and we've had no problems that we're aware of like deficiencies or things that are missed or anything like that.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
One other thing I wanted to note, I've been working on this with the developer, but the financial impact to the village was brought up by a couple of people. You know, hard to say exactly how many people would live in a 142 unit building, but let's just say, 200 to 250. That number of people in, for example, single-family homes with their own yards and garages and the miles of street that would take to house that same number of people, that's a lot greater impact to village services in terms of length of sewer lateral, water lateral that has to be maintained, miles of road to plow and, repave in the future. Another thing, every time a building permit is pulled, there are impact fees that are charged, and those are by unit. So in 142 units, we multiply those impact fees, and our estimate right now for combination or total of library impact fees, park improvement fees, and parkland acquisition fees is nearly $700,000 just from this development. Building permit fees, the village doesn't retain all of these. A lot of this goes to Pay Safe Built. It's about $115,000. And then annexation fees for connecting to the West Side Sanitary Sewer, contributing to the future improvements on Jefferson Street, putting in the bike path, paying a stormwater management fee, and also the town taxes that get sent to the town, but that totals around $45,000 as well. So those impact fees are designed to help us keep up with the infrastructure needs for additional housing that's added. So just wanted to point that out.
Thank you. You took all the things I was going to discuss. but
Sorry.
okay. No, you did a better job than I would have, so. Anybody else want to speak to this?
Elise, can you circle back? You had mentioned the multi-purpose path and that being partly constructed along with the development of this site.
Yep.
What you meant by that and where that would go and how
Sure.
that would connect this property to other pedestrian walkways?
Yep, I'll see if Jeff can pull up just the Access Dane map or something, or GIS, but we would require, as part of the construction of this project, that a 10-foot wide, that multi-use path would be installed prior to, kind of sign off on the site work. That would run in front of the property, probably partially in the right-of-way and partially in their private property, just based on the grades there. And that would actually continue to the west on the Bergamot townhome parcels. And this is part of the area that we walked. So there is a slope there down to that ditch and the culvert you can kind of see. So we would work with fiduciary, probably have a pedestrian access easement there because that path would likely need to go kind of on that northern property line. But it would connect to the sidewalk at Bergamot Boulevard. And then eventually, if there's further development to the west in time, those paths will all connect, but that would be how folks would get out to the rest of the pedestrian access, at this point. And then when the road reconstruction would happen, we would do the full length of the south side there and the north side as well with those 10-foot multi-use paths, which is a lot safer than trying to do bike paths on street, especially with the road that would be going kind of at this capacity.
You haven't worked out the access across the fiduciary property?
We haven't. We have notified
concept.
fiduciary. Yep, so they're aware of that and, are willing to work with us to try to fit it. If they move forward with their townhome plans, those townhomes are actually kind of along the southern property line, so there's quite a bit of space there that is kind of unused along that northern property line where that bike path would go.
Want to say something? Sure.
There's two ways to look at this project. One is the way that Elise had mentioned is the amount of area that a development of single-family homes for this number of people would take up. And this is a much more condensed and defined level of area for this number of people. I think it's a good use. I think that you've listened to us. I think that you have stepped the building down in good places. I think you have done some nice things with the architecture to help break the mass up. I think it's an attractive building. I like the fact that it's pushed up against the street with the parking on the back. I'm not concerned about the lighting. I think that you've done a nice job with landscaping and creating green spaces, and I actually think that the green area that's in between the two wings will become a very active place to just sort of sit and people watch, especially as Jefferson Street begins to be activated more with pedestrians and with traffic going two ways and a controlled speed through there, because right now it can become a raceway. And I think that will help to alleviate too some of the pressure of people coming and going from this facility. I think it's a nice project, and I think it's something the village needs, and I think that you've done a nice job to sort of listen to us.
Thank you. Anybody?
The only thing that gives me any pause is the agreement with the easement, the access easement is something that needs to get worked out. But the access easement is something that needs to get worked out, but I think the project as a whole is
Still can't?
useful.
There's only like 3 mics working.
Okay. His cons,
No,
So let's try another
It's
one.
working, you just have to speak right
Yeah,
into the
to speak up.
microphone. Yeah.
Pretty loud to begin with. The access
Shove it.
easement is
There
something
you
that I
go.
feel needs to get worked out, but I think the project as a whole is solid. I think it needs to be something the village needs, and this location is, I can't think of a better one right now for something like this. So.
heard that? Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Larry. And you better grab it and hold.
I think his
Yep, pull down your
Yours will work?
microphone, Larry. Thanks.
Okay, I got it. Yeah, I had problems getting used to the size and dimensions of this, but as discussion has gone on and time has gone on, we've been able to see how it can fit there. It is a desirable looking facility. I think I like the parking behind. I know that it's something that looks like an encroachment upon the neighboring homes in that area, but there is a screening that will be applied there, and I'd hate to see that parking out on the street. It makes it look like, to me, a hotel or motel appearance rather than coming into the village and seeing housing. And it's a good step back of having it placed there and sizing down to multiple homes and duplexes and single family beyond to the south of it. So I'd be in favor of it.
We didn't hear any of that.
Yeah, you got to pull it in there. Just, we apologize. It's all this nice equipment we have. Take that microphone, Larry, and just, you got to almost eat it, basically. Pull it right up close to your mouth.
Okay.
Now you're going to, so if you remember everything you said, they'd like to hear it again.
Okay. I said that, can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Yes,
much
they
better,
can.
thank you.
Yes, they
Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, I was kind of set back by the size and scope of this when it first came along. We've been driving that area, that road for so many years with a barn and then maybe a more modern house there, and from the appearance of it, you might think it a wet facility, but we do have the engineering laid out, and it's been attested to that will be taken care of. I think it is a good use for the property. I like the parking back behind rather than having it out on the, right out on the street on CC or Jefferson, where it makes it look more like a motel rather than a residential area that is more pleasing to see coming and going from the village. I feel getting it, the size of all that together and having all the places that need to be accessed, being connected by sidewalks, I think is important, and I would be in favor of the process.
Thank you, thank you. Anybody else? Go ahead, yes, sir.
Is this working?
I better pull it closer, it doesn't sound like it. There you
Yeah,
go.
thank you. I want to echo my colleagues' comments. I think that I agree with pretty much everything. But I also have concerns about the driveway, and I don't see this getting final approval, at least on my part, until that's resolved.
Okay, no other comments? Before I close the hearing, does anybody else want to speak? So we have opportunities. Okay, then we will close the public hearing and move on to discussion and possible recommendation to village board. I've heard several people, again, we're going to go back to this driveway thing. The parcel, explain to me if you can, Elise and Jeff, I'm sorry to interrupt you, the annexation required, we're going to annex that property, but now the property behind that, the Fink property, I believe, that's also in the town of Oregon. Is that
Correct, currently.
And how does it lay out there? So in other words, if we have this annexation of the Epp property.
Yep.
Because they have the driveway, that constitutes, they get out to the highway, that constitutes the fact that they're still part of the township. Is that correct? Is that how it works?
Right, so if the Fink,
Yeah.
if this moves forward and the Fink property isn't, kind of annexed along with this or, isn't on the same schedule, then, as long as the driveway access is confirmed that this is allowed, then.
Right, well, that's.
Then, yeah, it would be accessed through a town property. I don't think there's any, as our code requires that any project is, accessible to a public road, and that would be.
Yeah, did you indicate, has that property
path.
been, there's some other properties have been listed for
The
sale
other
in it?
property is listed, the Thatcher property, so that barn, kind of wooded lot
There.
between Mulligan's and the church has been also listed, both kind of within the last 2 weeks.
The church.
No, right here.
Right there,
Yep.
I'm sorry, yes,
Yep.
that
So that's
property.
about 2.8 acres, and then Fink's property is 3.5, so same.
Has that been listed?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
Yep,
my
they're
point's
both
going to, and I mentioned this at the beginning. My point is that, and I understand Mr. Fink's not here this evening apparently. I'm going to suggest, and I'm just suggesting, that those two property owners get this figured out. Because Mr. Fink wants to sell it, I suspect he's going to want annexation. We're not going to deal with this again. Frankly, that's my opinion, that's my position.
Yeah, we can't force someone to annex.
Oh, no, I'm not, we're not saying that, but someday.
Yeah. I will say, one of the things that has held up the improvement of.
You better get in close on this, too.
Even closer.
You can hear
Closer,
me. You can hear
closer.
me. Yeah, I know, exactly.
Bring it to you,
The
buddy.
one thing that has really held up the improvement of Jefferson Street out to our western boundary is that we cannot have a reconstruction project and a jurisdictional transfer of that highway to us while there are still town properties bordering that, because there's dual jurisdiction there. So ideally, we would see all three of these properties be incorporated and annexed into the village at some time in the near future, which would then allow us to actually do the reconstruction all the way at least out to Bergamot at this time.
Again, my comment was, or my intention, my comment, so I make it very clear. We got two more properties that may want annexation. I don't know
Right.
the folks to the north, the other side of CC, whatever. The property south of the development we're talking about right now. If they want annexation, and again, we're not asking them to annex, that's up to them.
Yep.
But I'm not going to be a real pleasant person about the fact that we have to deal with this whenever that happens. get the easement stuff straightened out. So we don't deal, because the village is not going to deal with it. The village will have nothing to do with that. So I make it very clear, I've been down this road once before, many years ago. We're not going to deal with it again. So that's my position, and I'm going to be here for a little while, I think, so.
So Elise, you had mentioned in your comments about moving forward with approving this project based on the conditions that you had set forth in your letter. And that the Plan Commission really just doesn't have any jurisdiction over the legal aspect of that access road, correct?
Correct.
So if we make a motion to approve, do we need to make any contingencies regarding that? Or do we just make a motion to approve and let somebody else figure it out?
That's up to you. I don't think I have it spelled out as I have contingent upon an annexation agreement and annexation ordinance by the developer or current property owner. So if you'd like to add that to the conditions that this get resolved, I will say, again, the GDP will not be brought forward until the annexation steps as well, and we will be bringing the village board kind of up to speed on this issue, likely at their later July meeting, and I have a feeling that they will probably have a similar position that they would like this to get resolved prior to annexation. So I feel pretty confident in, again, following kind of our village attorney's advice that, recommending that these two parties kind of work this out together. Ultimately, it's up to the village board to, if an annexation petition is filed, to hear it. But I think you can have a pretty strong assurance. Again, we would have an SIP step as well, so that site plan. And I think with that site plan review, we would want to see kind of more concrete evidence that we feel that the proposed use is allowed, either with the current access agreement or with the revised one.
You know me, I don't like a lot of contingencies on these things, so,
Right,
and that's just
so-
my personal opinion. Anybody else can, make their comments, but I'm suggesting that we don't necessarily go ahead with this at this time. The recommendation to the village board for the GDP. It's nothing to do with the project, it has to do with the GDP, and the GDP needs to be approved, but I also think we need to give them another month or so, or whatever it's going to take, maybe take them longer, to just make this discussion, or have this discussion, have this clarification for us. Otherwise, you have it again at the SIP, then you're going to have it again at the annexation. Let's just get this, not us, let the property owners get this figured out. That's my position. You guys all talk.
I'm also very concerned that we're creating a village parcel that doesn't have access to a street except for going through a township parcel. Seems a little strange. It may or may not be totally allowable or legal under statutes, but it seems like a leap for me to, take this project and approve it with that big of unknown in there. And then the pedestrian access is
It's not so
a very
much.
large concern for me when you have 140 whatever units and 200 and some people living apartment life that do like to get out and take a walk and such, and they really don't have a safe way to do that I'm seeing in the plan that I'm asked to vote on tonight. It sounds like there may be some options in the work, but I guess I'd like to see a little more detail on that, so that we know that we have pedestrian access for all these people and vehicular access for all these people before we take a leap and move forward with this. That's kind of where I stand at this time.
Seems like I'm getting the same nod here, am I not? Okay, so I'm
You're
suggesting
looking for
that.
a motion to the table then? or-
I believe that'd be the proper thing. And how long, is there a
So-
limitation how long we can have it tabled?
This one. So, at village board, this happens, fairly often with tabling and, postponing, yeah. So we do need to postpone to a specific date. Whether or not, the developer is ready, that can be moved and updated, but we could just say, at this time to the next meeting. And then if it looks like more time is needed to resolve this, then we can,
Next
bump
meeting's
it
fine,
up.
I won't be here.
Yeah, so I'd modify that and say.
Vacation with
postpone this-
grandchildren. So,
postpone this item till the next meeting?
I don't know if you want, you're putting a, think they can get that accomplished in 30 days?
Well, we can just
Postpone again?
move it out again.
Okay, I have no problem with that then, that's fine.
Yep, so I would be in touch with the developer ahead of time to make sure that they have the materials that we would be expecting to see in hand, and if not, then we'll put that on the agenda that the developer is requested to, move it to September meeting or whatever it may be.
And again, it's not our position, our place, but I would think that somebody in the group here would make a suggestion to the individual that owns a property to the south that they may want to look at it, because again, we don't want to deal with something down the road if and when they want to annex.
Yep, no, I'll certainly be following up with them.
Okay. Okay.
I may not be able to wait a month.
I'm sorry, until we get that straightened out, that's where we're at. If you want to get it done, you get it done before next month, that's fine. That's fine. Okay? We need a motion to table this application, or table the, postpone the GDP approval until the next Plan Commission meeting, which is
August 3rd.
August
3.
3.
Yep.
My grandson's birthday, okay. All right, so we have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
We have a motion, we have a second.
second it.
We have a second, Mr. Marr. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
You can also postpone.
Do you want to go on with the certified survey map? There's no reason we can't do that, is there? Or
Well,
would you,
yeah,
table
I think
that
we should
also.
table it too, because the project, that CSM wouldn't get filed unless the project is moving
So
forward.
we're
with it.
motion, yeah, a
Do
motion.
you want to postpone again?
Yes.
Yeah, so motion to postpone till
Okay.
the next meeting?
Thank you. We have motion. We have a second.
Second?
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. In the end. Eric? Joy? Eric had the second.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on. Must be in a hurry. You want to get up here right away.
He's right up there.
He was right up there. How do you know that we weren't going to push another one ahead of you? huh?
It's gonna hit me pretty soon here too, so.
Yeah.
I know, I'm regretting it right now.
You can come in. It probably says some other kind of logo on underneath it. Okay, move on. I'm sorry, we just got to have a little levity once in a while. Move on to item 7C, public hearing discussion, recommendation village board for a conditional use permit to allow an in-vehicle and service, it's a new car wash, in the planned business zoning district at 916 Janesville Street. Applicant is Quick Trip. We'll open the meeting open the public hearing at this time. Do you have any staff reports on it at all?
You all saw this as a concept plan, I think, back in the spring. Not too many changes here, but I'll have Zach kind of walk through the plans, any amendments that have been made. But yes, just because we decided this should have a new conditional use permit, even though there's been a gas station use before, and that is still this in-vehicle sales and service use. This is a significantly different site layout and use of the site, so felt like we should just start from scratch with a conditional use permit just for the car wash use. Yeah, if you could kind of talk about the site, operations, and, construction timeline, things like that would be great.
Absolutely. Thank you, Elise, and thank you, Commission. As Elise mentioned, pretty similar plan to what was reviewed in May. The major change we made here was addressing the comments regarding the stacking before that exit point. So if you remember prior, it was about 2.5 vehicles that could be between the point at which you type in your car wash code and the point at which you can exit if the queue is too long. We did adjust that back such that it can be a full 3 vehicle stack in each lane before you would be blocking access to that. That landscape island you see next to that point as well. Remember, there were some concerns about the shape of that and potentially having a harsh turning radius within the property. So we did soften that to make for easier movement within the site. Otherwise, no major changes from what was presented prior. So happy to answer any additional questions at this time.
Anybody have any questions? Is there any public comment? Anybody want to make any comments about this from the public?
I did have a register.
Oh, okay, you have a,
We would do the
that's fine,
public
you
hearing,
got some.
yeah.
That's fine. Go ahead, Joy.
We're just gonna, before we get to that,
Oh.
just kind of point out the elevations. I think some of these were shared in the concept plan, so kind of matching the new Quick Trip across the street nicely. And then, I believe you guys did have I think page 63 here of the packet just showed kind of the, in green, it's pretty hard to see there, but that would be the new green space compared to what is existing as kind of in black underneath there. So a significant improvement to the amount of green space on this lot, and I think you guys will do a nice job around that sign. I don't know if there was any kind of landscaping shown, but the monument sign, having some landscaping around there and making that corner a lot more attractive.
We'll be going from 40,000 square feet of impervious surface on the existing site down to 21,000 square feet of impervious. And minimum landscape ratio here is 25%. We'll be at 55%.
Excellent.
Not very often you get that.
No, I've never heard of
The other
that
way.
before.
No arguments there.
Especially for Quick Trip, but no,
Yeah,
good job on
okay.
this one.
So we have no other comments from the plan commission other than that? Okay. And nothing from the public?
Yeah, we do have
I'm sorry,
someone from the
I
public.
apologize again. Yes, go ahead, Joy.
Carol Carr would like to speak.
I still don't know what side of the street
Oh.
it's on.
Oh, come on up,
Okay,
come on,
sure.
we'll explain it to you. We'll explain.
Is that,
North side of Jefferson or the south side where Quick Trip is?
Where
That's
Quick
where it
Trip
is.
yep, so we're at Janesville Street, so Janesville and Wolf over by that kind of eastern Quick Trip on your way out of town, before you pass Culver's now. So the plan is, this is kind of in the staff report, but sorry, I glazed over this. The existing Quick Trip store, will be replaced with a new store on the other side of the street, so where those new apartments are. It's already under construction. That'll be, I think, wrapped up probably late this fall. That's the goal, for that new store. And then once that new store is open, this existing gas station will be decommissioned, so building taken down, all the tanks taken out, the canopy removed, and then construction on the car wash would start either late this year or early next year. So this is the existing Quick Trip site, for that gas station on that side of town.
I was on the wrong side of the street.
No, it's confusing. I think everyone was kind of, getting excited. At first, we were going to have 4 Quick Trips, but maintaining that and then adding the car wash, just the 3. So.
Okay, that answers the questions. All right, then we are going to close the public hearing. Move on to discussion and recommendation of village board for conditional use permit to allow for in-vehicle sales and service. I can understand that, in the planned business zoning district.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do you have a second?
That was me.
Yeah.
Who was
Second.
that? Who was that?
Mr. Marr.
Mar and,
John first and then.
Dino, Marr. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. We look forward to it. Review and possible approval of the site plan for at 916 Janesville Street for the new car wash. Applicant Quick Trip Incorporated.
Move to approve?
We have a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. More grass. Wonderful. Thank you. We like that. Yeah. Okay, we're going to move on to item 7E, public hearing, discussion and consider recommendation to the village board for a revised conditional use permit, CUP, to allow for outdoor commercial entertainment in the central business district at 214 Spring Street, which is Oregon Bowl. At this time, we'll open the public hearing. Staff report.
All right, so I was approached by Chad from the Oregon Bowl a couple of months ago. They are interested in having some more outdoor events in their fenced-in area off their parking lot, so not looking to expand that area. But their previous conditional use permit, which allowed that outdoor use for dining and some acoustic music, specifically did not allow amplified music, and also limited the events between Memorial Day and Labor Day. So they'd like to expand that a little bit. I always ask applicants for these types of uses, kind of give me your kind of best or worst case scenario, depending on who you're asking, in terms of how often you think these events would be, just so we can kind of have some parameters to go off of. So I don't think it would be as often as they're proposing, at least initially, but he's hoping to do maybe 1 or 2 nights a week, maybe Friday or Saturday night, to have amplified music in that outdoor area sometime during their business hours, so they don't stay open later than 10 p.m., at least for the events outside, and expanding the times that could be between April 1st and October 31st. There's also no change needed for the alcohol license, right? Do I think we
Correct,
discussed?
that's
Right, yep.
included in
Yep,
the-
so their premise description already includes this outdoor fenced-in area, so that would not need to be updated with the village board, but for these events, they would have likely a cover charge for the bands, and so there would be a station where they're collecting that cover charge, then also checking IDs there, so doing wristbands, and if there are multiple, kind of bar locations, making sure that folks with the wristbands are the only ones getting alcohol. So I do know, we have a couple of folks with some comments for this
Okay.
public hearing.
Applicant have any comments? Are they even here?
I don't see him.
I don't see him either. Okay. So we'll open up to the public. Anybody have any comments? You want to discuss anything?
So I have Carol Carr that would like to speak on this, and then I have 2 documents I can read when she's finished.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I didn't even know that area existed, so I went and I looked at it. And to me, it amounts to a cement slab with a regular old, plain old fence. There's nothing really pretty about it. But I also noticed on the plan, the site plan that you gave, there is no opening in that fence at all, that people that went out there would be coming from the bowling alley, is that correct?
Right, so I think there is one kind of emergency
There has to be.
exit or access for the band on the north, or it's the east end here, but the plan north there. So there is another gate on that side, kind of near the senior center.
There's no mention of restrooms?
Yep, those are, yep.
So the only ones that are shown on the site are those few right inside the front door? Is that
Yep.
correct? That's going to serve that whole area. After last weekend, the noise from the downtown area was extremely loud, and I live a long way from it. So amplified music at the Oregon Fest played inside a tent and enclosed. It was very loud. If we offered this same thing to the bowling alley, how do we know what decibel level they're going to be asked to keep it at? Who's going to be there? How many kids in the neighborhood are going to be hanging on the chain link fence? Is that fencing appropriate for that type of outdoor facility? And I haven't been to the facility that's south of here that do have bands on a regular basis, whether they're inside, they're outside, or whatever, but who governs that? And make sure that we don't have a whole row of senior citizens down the street listening to this whenever the bowling alley thinks it's a good idea. I mean, I just haven't seen any constraints asked of them or them coming forward with a plan. Is there one?
Could I answer some
Certainly.
questions
Go right
before
ahead.
we read some of these other comments? So, as far as the decibel level, so regardless of whether it's outdoor music or somebody out there with a chainsaw, we do have a noise ordinance within the village, and it's based on, Well, I can pull up the exact numbers, but it's all, various decibel levels based on the zoning district and also time of day. So there's sort of daytime hours when construction takes place and things like that, and then nighttime hours. So we do have a way to measure that. So we do have, I think the police department has the device to be able to measure that and see if there is a noise complaint. The plan that's presented here, explains just that these are the parameters in terms of the dates in the year, the frequency, and then the hours that they would. So they said between 1 and 10 p.m. and then, not that it would be 9 hours of music, but that would be, it might be an afternoon of music or evening of music. Ziggy's Barbecue does have amplified music, and they.
We never hear them.
Right, so, we don't know yet how this will go over. The nice thing with conditional use permits is, it sets parameters and, if they're not obeying the village noise ordinance or they're going above and beyond the frequency that was allowed or the hours, then we can bring them back to planning commission and they can either ask to revise that plan or that
And right
conditional
now,
use
they
permit
don't
can
have
be
a real
revoked.
Plan.
It's a bowling alley. They don't, it's pretty casual.
I know,
Yeah.
but
Mhm. This is similar,
If I was
yeah.
going to request that, I have a feeling that more people would want to know more.
Sure, yeah, well, this is similar to what we saw when Ziggy's revised their request to go from acoustic to amplified music last fall. And that is actually a lot closer to residential areas than this area. There are neighbors nearby, but they are a fair bit further than the Ziggy's setup over there.
Okay, and you had something else you want to read, Joy?
You want yours read? Yeah, sure. Okay. All right, and Dolores, you want yours read? Okay.
Sure, up to you.
Thanks.
Can you hear me?
Not yet.
Little closer.
I
Can you hear
can't
me
as
now?
you're facing me, but
Closer?
I think that's working, isn't it? It's
Yeah, you're
working.
on.
Yeah, you're good, you're
Okay.
good.
Just
My name
speak
is
up.
Karen Alt, and I live at 171 Spring Street, very close to that bowling alley. For number one, I had the loud noise of the people and the music. And then my second thing was twice a week, April 1st to October 31st, that he had asked for. I think that's, and I was hoping that he was thinking about the Tuesdays for the Triangle Park music, because they're also, and then why was I the only one sent a hard copy notice of this? I went around today, and I talked to a lot of people, including the firemen. They had not heard of it, and the fire chief is on vacation, and he sent him a copy of the notice that I had gotten, but they had not heard about it. And my two neighbors, who are just 100 feet from me, or probably 1,000.
It's a little bit of a difference.
They don't live on my back porch.
Okay.
But anyway, they hadn't gotten a copy of it either, and
they
other
won't.
people around the library, nobody else has gotten a copy of it. And, they're probably going to say later on, they didn't know about it, but, that's the thing that always happens, when they aren't. And
Well, I
then I
think
had
it's-
another, oops.
I'm sorry, no, go ahead. Let's
Keep
let you
going?
finish. I was-
Okay. My other fourth one was parking. If half the lot is fenced in, what are they going to do about parking? The other one was the firemen sleeping. And can they hear the thing when the bell goes off for them? Because of the loud, I know how those guitars can really screech and they're loud. And I'm not against music. I like music, but not when I'm trying to sleep. I don't know.
And again,
But he
the
set to
hours
10
of,
o'clock,
hours
so-
of operation,
Yeah,
at least
and then-
for what? I'm sorry, the hours of operation were from 1 till
1 to 10.
1 to 10 o'clock at night.
Within that range, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not too late.
And then our other thing was, can they put up barriers to keep the noise in? Like a lot of places will do that, so that, well, they'll do it so the music goes out. But they can also place them around so that the music stays like in that area. And then I had a thought about the younger generation maybe trying to sneak in or, you know, and the alcohol, you know, things like that.
Well,
And who's
okay,
gonna police it,
I
you know?
appreciate your concerns, but I'm sure that the police department's going to be very, very cautious about what goes on
Greg,
there.
the use of the outdoor cage, or whatever you want to call it, has been going on for years and under permitted conditional
Yeah.
use, I believe.
Yep.
So, yeah, none of that, I don't think, is part of the change. And I think that's been vetted by previous police chiefs and
Right.
current police
They're
chiefs.
they're just enlarging the area is what they're doing, correct?
The what?
They're enlarging the area, correct?
No,
No, it's just changing
they just want to.
amplified music
Amplified,
and
I'm sorry.
hours,
Yeah, I'm trying to
hours
remember
and,
that side of the
and time of the year.
Okay, well then it's, yeah, okay. So the park has been there.
But
Fence
there
is there?
hasn't really been anything there. I mean, maybe like, when the, festival comes to town, they'll have something, but other than that, I've never seen or heard. There's barely 2 or 3 cars down there in any given night, except when bowling starts up,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So,
But they're asking for amplified music, that's the concern, in other words.
yeah, that's it.
So that you can hear it.
Well, thank you anyway.
No,
I mean,
thank,
I don't mean that, I shouldn't have said anyway, like I'm doomed. But- which I think I am, but anyway, thanks for listening.
thank you
to
for
me.
your input, I appreciate that, we all appreciate that, thank you.
Thank you very much, folks.
You're welcome.
And I have one more here from Dolores West, 122 East Grove Street. This says, if the bowling alley wants to play music, why amplified? Define amplified, and 7 months of loud music. It has been proven that loud amplified music is harmful for the elderly as well as young children. Loud music can cause stress, anxiety, high blood pressure, hearing loss, and heart disease. You really want this for the patrons and the surrounding neighborhoods, question mark. All the young children playing softball, baseball on the diamonds a half block away from the bowling alley, the firemen across the street, all the homeowners that are paying high taxes and living close to the bowling alley, the apartments on Park Street. And then when Summerfest had their amplified music, friends who lived 2 miles out in the country could hear this. How many families and youngsters are going to be adversely affected by amplified music?
Okay, thank you. Any other public comments? Okay, then we will close the public hearing and move on to a discussion. The Plan Commission, on whether or not you want a recommendation for a conditional use permit. Anybody? Go ahead.
I picture this as more of a Ziggy's kind of amplified music than a Summerfest kind of thing, so
Oh, yeah.
to me, it's not a big concern. If they had 2 nights of music downtown all summer long, I'd be shocked, but I guess it would be great if it was.
Yeah, and they may have, they're going to try to probably produce some additional revenue and additional business, and they might have one night. It doesn't matter, it doesn't matter to us at this point. They're asking for it. Typically, it's only going to occur on a Friday and Saturday night, more than likely. I highly doubt it would be during the week, but it could be. Again, as you said, Eric, I think it would be, when you say amplified, yes, but again, it's going to be not a loud rock band, et cetera. Go ahead, Jeff.
I do echo the comment as far as for the longest time in May and June, we've had the summer band.
Yes.
Always on Tuesday nights. And then the Sounds of Summer concert series through July through the end of August. So if you did do a conditional use permit or granted, I would recommend that you exclude Tuesdays.
I have no problem, I don't
Yeah.
think they have a problem. But
And I don't think that's a big night
At
for
least
them.
as long
anyways.
as those events, yeah, or as long as those events are going on or
Right.
nothing, changes,
By
but
the way, I will tell you that I can hear it up on Richards Road, the orchestra at the
band?
train. Yes, I can.
Is that a complaint?
No,
Okay.
just trying to let you all know that I still have good ears at my
Send you a
age.
letter.
yeah.
At my age, I still got good ears. No, it's going to carry across the village, I understand that. So.
Yeah. Yeah, as far as
I-
notification, oh, go ahead.
I would think that requiring some sound abatement would be in order. If we've been, we've dealt with this issue before and have requested that some barriers wouldn't necessarily need to have landscaping at this point, but possibly in the future that would be in order if it's going to be there for a long time.
Yeah, and I have to, I understand your concerns. My only concern about that is that let's see if there's an issue. Asking them to do that before they know whether or not this is going to be a success might be a little bit more of a detriment.
The other thing that we could do in addition would be to put a length of time on the permit and ask that it be reviewed in a year's time after we've seen how things have gone.
That's possibly, Lisa and Jeff, I don't know if you had noticed that, what Larry had mentioned about putting a length of time, in other words, a duration for the permit.
So, yeah, we're actually just discussing that. I don't think that's allowed with conditional use permits. I
Okay.
think it's as long as the use continues under the conditions that were approved. And they, again, if the noise ordinance, for example, is violated.
Yes.
And, we get calls that it's extremely loud or, definitely they're playing and it's midnight or something like that, then I would certainly bring this back to the village board, the planning commission and say, what's your plan to either correct these violations, or if you're not willing to correct those, then the permit's pulled
Right.
and then we get the police involved and stuff.
We do have a recourse,
Yep,
basically.
yep.
We do. So there's a recourse there. So, okay.
But yeah, I will say, since the Ziggy's changed, sorry, Scott, since the Ziggy's changed, and it was actually even some of the neighbors that said, we were worried about the amplified music before, but we actually think it'd be kind of nice to hear that from our front porch, and we haven't heard any complaints from the neighbors that are right across the street or up the road there.
Okay.
On South Main Street. I'm not sure how often Ziggy's has been doing this, and I think with the Oregon Bowl, since this isn't really something they've been having some acoustic bands, but it's not been a regular thing. I think they'll likely start small and kind of see how it goes and then go on from there. So I don't anticipate, like you said, it's going to be as often as what's laid out here.
I think we should give it a chance, and again, if we have an issue, we have a recourse. And I don't think we will.
Yeah, I don't recall that we put any additional requirements on Ziggy's
No.
for a very similar situation, so I think we should be consistent with this one.
Good point.
And
Good
there
point.
are remedies if something's out of hand, so.
Yep. Okay. Talked about enough? What do you guys think?
Make a motion to approve the conditional
use permit.
the conditional use request.
Okay, we have
With-
motion.
With the suggestion to not have it on the night of the village events at the band show.
Tuesday, yeah, during the summer with the
During summer
Tuesday
events at
band
Triangle
events, yep.
Park, right? Okay, that makes sense. Do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
We have a second, Mr. Marr.
Mark.
Thank you.
Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving on to letter F, 7F. Review and possible approval of site plan for the new United States Postal Service Post Office at 102 Alpine Parkway. Applicant is Supreme Structures.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Is this on? Am I talking
Yeah.
close enough? All right.
There's a few of us now here, you can just talk about it.
We got one gentleman, he just loves staying. Thanks for staying. It's nice. This time of the meeting, these guys are left or whatever. So. Yeah. Oh, okay.
I think you're on.
Am I on?
Yeah, you're on.
All right.
Take us off,
A
Dan.
couple months ago, we did an initial presentation, and a couple of comments were relocate the entrance at the vestibule. Excellent idea. I was also in support of that. Another one was relocate some of the park in the island at the driveway, entrance on Alpine, and the current plans will reflect both those changes. Do not ask me how the United States Postal Service agreed to our changes, and I got it done in under 2 months. So,
I don't think you understand what a monumental task that was.
what you have tonight is the final set of plans that, if approved tonight,
Dan?
Yes.
Sorry, could you introduce yourselves too,
I'm
just for the
sorry.
folks in the audience that haven't met you yet?
Dan Bertler, Supreme Structures, also the owner of DAJK LLC, which currently owns the property.
Dylan Douglas, GT Engineering, civil engineer for the project.
My bad.
All right, continue, thank you.
What you have in front of you tonight are the two changes that were discussed in the previous meeting and complete package, and I do believe Elise should have anything needed as for storm management in the packet.
Should, yeah.
We looked at all the comments that the village engineering reviewed, and we have no issues whatsoever with those. On the renderings, you'll see the two colors of blue, or one color of blue and the other color is white. And I apologize, the renderings really doesn't give it justice, but if you want to see the sample actual blue, it's here. Otherwise, pretty cut and dry. If approved tonight, we'd like to finalize a lease with the United States Postal Service and have them in by June of 2024 so they can vacate their current facility.
Okay.
And Dylan, if you have any questions, site work related or anything on the engineering side, he's JT Engineering.
I asked this when you were here a couple months ago. I still don't see it, drop-off box. Is that something
Found out
USPS is
where it
getting
is
rid of?
today,
or-
Scott.
Okay.
Dylan, you want to locate it?
Yeah, so it's, there's 4 parking spaces on the southwest side of the building. So that'd be the bottom side of the plan, right above your cursor. So
Right there.
Yeah, just down from there will be where the drop-off will be.
Okay.
So you'd basically be pulling in right, drop off on the driver's side, and pulling
Zip
back
back out.
right on
Perfect.
or on Alpine.
Good. I was
And I
hoping-
found that out tonight at 3 o'clock after I saw the comments from the village.
I thought maybe that was something they were doing away with, but it's a popular feature at the
Unfortunately
post
not.
office, and I use it myself. One other thing that they have at the current post office, they park all of their postal vehicles up against the building, and they've got electrical out there to plug them in the winter, and I don't know if they've asked you to provide for that, but you may want a conduit or something under that parking lot.
Those are part of the requirements.
Okay.
And is-
Greg, just, oh, sorry.
No, just to clarify, so is it gonna be kind of the postal trucks will be up against the building on the
It'll be on the back
east-
side.
East side of the building, and then that staff parking's kind of mostly
Yes.
those 17 spaces there?
Game plan as of right now is that.
Got it.
Greg, earlier this evening, there was just a comment on that they prefer it downtown and all that. And
Yes, I
just-
heard
Oh, yeah.
Just so everyone understands, we own the post office. We, as the village, own the post office, and they've been our tenants for 40-some-odd years or longer. That area is being used for the new senior center development, and so their lease will expire in June of 2024. And so they've been looking for an alternate site, and just like we found in the downtown master plan, there are not available sites downtown for a post office. So this is and it's a good use of the site over there.
Now, I can add a little bit to that as well. They have a process that the United States Postal Service has to go through. First is look at existing buildings and nothing populated as for the time for the requirements that were there. Next is available land, which they did. It's been up the flagpole, no pun intended, I would say 3-4 times of everything they had to go through. And we're getting creative on how to get it to work on the budget with their lease.
And we've always felt, at least at the village, at staff level, it's very important to keep post office in the village. It's a nice amenity for our residents.
I imagine too, their needs, I mean, not only are they getting kicked out of their current space, but that current space wasn't really meeting their needs in terms of square footage and functionality, right? So this will
Correct.
be improvement for the staff as well as I'm sure the residents too.
Okay, all right.
I was looking at the plan, and it looked like the entryway is a ramp. It's not a set of stairs, or are there both steps and ramp?
There will be no steps that,
Yeah.
it's all, there's a handicap ramp up, and then sidewalk access as
Yeah.
well to the public sidewalk.
That's a real hazard, the one that we have lived with for so many years. It's oversized, they're tall steps, and they're hard to negotiate for older people.
Icy in the winter.
Okay, so are we happy with that site plan? So we need a motion approval of the site plan as presented.
Thanks for doing what we'd asked you to do. I think it's a better project. I'd make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a second?
Second.
Second.
For the
Any
record,
discuss-
John, we always do.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
We would have liked the brewery option too, by the way.
We're still,
You're
we're
gonna
still
get kind
back
of
to
a
that.
little
upset
on the
about
other
that.
side.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, we've taken care of G and H, down to I, which is review and possible approval of the site plan for the 4-unit townhouse at 245 North Bergamot Boulevard, Lot 3, Oregon Parks, duplex replat. Applicant is Liberty Park.
All right, I'm not sure where Keo went. I saw
I
him.
just saw him, he's been walking around here.
Okay, should we grab him? One second.
Yeah, well, we'll just wait, yeah, go ahead and see if we can find him.
I'll pull it up.
Oh, yeah, we have.
Moved him up.
Come on, you gotta, sorry.
All right, while he gets settled here, so this is a
We're
site
gonna
plan.
deny it now because you didn't get here on time.
I'm sorry?
You're up
You-
here.
We'll deny it because you didn't get here on
Denied.
time.
I thought there were a couple ahead of me, but.
No,
Well, there were,
we moved the
there
agenda
were, but
around
we
a
moved
little
those to
bit,
the
so
front. You
Okay,
weren't,
all right.
you weren't here. I'm sorry that you weren't here at the beginning of the meeting.
We're,
Or you
we're
weren't in
rolling,
the room.
Okay, I'll give a little background here and then hand it over to Keo in case I missed anything. So this lot we are discussing is Lot 3 in the Oregon Parks duplex replat. This is the parcel just north of Beehive. This was actually brought forward last year, I think it was, as a comprehensive plan amendment as the plans kind of developed over here, and it turned out that rather than 2 duplexes on the lot, it made more sense to have 1 townhome, and the way that our comp plan is currently set up, that was a different land use category. I'm actually suggesting in the next version, you'll see next month in the draft, making some changes so we don't have to go through all that rigmarole if a similar change happens in the future. But here we are. And there was also some GDP zoning flexibilities that were requested for setbacks, things like that for this whole area for these duplexes, since it is fairly dense development within this block. As the plans developed, All-Star Properties realized that they were able to build this project themselves and also do it within the by right setbacks for our MR8 multifamily zoning district, and the GDP flexibilities were not allowed. So rather than an SIP before you tonight, just a site plan, looks very similar. But the plans, Jeff, if you can kind of scroll down a little bit. Let me see
Do you want the landscape
what we
plan
had
or
in
do you want
there.
the elevation?
Yeah, elevation's good. So 3-story, but with parking accessed on the lower level and then living above, but 4 units there. I did scan the cut sheet, and we have it here so you guys can see the colors. I can pass this around. I think that's kind of the main points. The access, it was from the south there. You can kind of see on the site. And otherwise, again, within the parameters of our by right for setbacks and building height for the zoning district. But Keo, anything to add in terms of plans for the site, or when you guys would like to start construction?
Nothing really to add for plans as far as starting construction sooner rather than later, although that probably means completion sometime in spring, I would guess.
All right. Questions? Anybody? We've seen it before. And anybody have any problems with the site plan?
Do we get to, is there more information that we will see, or is this our final look at this plan? I have no problem with the concept.
Yeah.
Conceptually, I think it's a great use for the site. I'm just wondering if this was all that we see.
Yep, this would be kind of the
Just like
final
plan,
step before building permit review.
And our limitations are the site plan itself, approval process, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, not any questions. Let's proceed with approval, I think. It looks like a good project, and I do like the looks of the building, so, in a nice green space. So you need a motion to approve the site plan for a 4-unit townhouse at 245 North Bergamot Boulevard as presented.
So moved.
Do I have a second? I'll second it. Any discussion?
Is that John and Greg?
Say what?
Larry.
Larry and Greg, okay.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, you had to come.
Nope,
No,
that's all
no,
right.
that's fine. No, that's okay. I'm just giving you a hard time. Thanks. Okay, there's no other public appearances. Director of Community Development Report, status of development projects.
As I mentioned, we have our draft of our park plan and our comprehensive plan back. Got that back maybe about a month ago. So Jeff and I will be going through that with a fine tooth comb with our consultants tomorrow and kind of through the coming weeks. And hopefully August, we'll have our first draft for you all to review. There was enough, bye Phil, enough changes from the last plan. He said it was kind of cobbled together from plans kind of 20 years ago and then 10 years ago that it really just needed a refresh. So it'll look a lot different. There's a couple new categories in there, but we really like the direction it's headed. It has, the appendices in terms of all the public comment we receive from the workshops, surveys, things like that. So we'll start going through that hopefully in August and then have a few draft reviews, likely a public kind of hearing and kickoff meeting likely in November, and then hope to adopt in December. But you'll see that coming forward, as well as the Autumn Ridge Phase 3A final plat has been submitted. So they'd like to do that development again, kind of in a A and B breakout like they've done with Phase 1 and Phase 2. So we'll probably be sharing that at the August 3rd meeting, and we'll be applying to CARPC on Monday for the Autumn Ridge Urban Service Area Amendment for Phases 3 and 5. Phase 4 is already in the urban service area. Any construction project updates,
Yeah.
concession stand, road, anything?
Greenview Preserve, the Verdian Development, had a construction kickoff meeting today at the Village Hall, and I saw equipment out there already starting to push some dirt around.
They did start pushing? The equipment's been sitting there for like 2 weeks.
There's some stuff that they've started shaping
Really?
some of the
Okay.
roadway and everything like that.
All right.
So, yeah.
The trees and everything too?
Yeah.
Oh, we don't cut down trees here. No, we just plant trees.
Adam Coyle's apartment project is under construction. If you
Oh, it
haven't
sure
driven up
is.
North Main Street, those buildings are down. The Airforth, old
Concrete's
Gary
being
Willows
tore up.
site.
When is he actually thinking about the actual, I know he's tearing up the site.
Yeah.
He's just site prep right now, and is it,
No, he's moving it.
it's, okay.
Yeah, I think we'll start to see vertical
Some,
construction later
some,
this year.
foundation work and that kind of stuff? Okay, all right.
Yeah, I think lumber has come down quite a bit in the last couple
Oh.
months. So we're starting to hear other projects that have been waiting in the wings. We'll probably start to see some movement on, so
Okay.
stay tuned.
Okay.
Site's a lot deeper than I thought.
Yes, it certainly is, isn't it? It's a big lot.
Yeah.
Okay, the upcoming Plan Commission meetings, August 3rd. As I stated, I will not be here. I will be
I'll be out.
enjoying grandchildren. And then September 7th, I think it'll be held here. So plan staff meeting agenda we have for June 13th, that was already gone. No items for future meetings. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Have a second? I second it. I'm gonna not wait. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Thanks, guys. Good meeting. Jeffrey, get some microphones.
Trust me, I sent an email, 2 emails out tonight.